Welcome to another edition of Hey Bobby with Senior VP of the Guardians, Bob DiBiasio, with us on 93.5, 1590 WAKR, our YouTube channel, Facebook page, and of course, right here at WAKR.net as well. Lot to talk about this week with Bobby. So here we go. Let's get into it. And Bobby, first of all, I wanted to bring up a guy that I know you're very close to, and I think a guy that sometimes doesn't get his due for his accomplishments on the pitcher's mound for our teams of the 90s, and wasn't a guy that threw 99 miles an hour, but what he did do is he threw strikes. And that's Charles Nagy. And I thought maybe you could reflect a little bit on his importance to this franchise and those teams of the 90s.
One of my all-time favorites, Ray, Charlie Nagy. I will say forever and ever, when we were moving from Cleveland Stadium to the brand new ballpark just a mile away, that Charlie Nagy, Carlos Baerga, Sandy Alomar never said no to me when we needed to hype the fact that we are going into a baseball-only ballpark at the southern edge of downtown Cleveland, and forever indebted to those three and to Charlie specifically because of their willingness to help the organization in any way, shape, or form. And number one round draft pick out of the University of Connecticut. He was a member of the 1988 USA Olympic team, which was one of the highlights of his life. Three-time All-Star, most consistent starter. 129 wins. He's in the top 10 in wins, innings pitched, strikeouts, games started in our franchise, which has a whole lot of stellar pitchers.
He always kept you, he would go out on the mound and it wasn't spectacular, but you looked up, it was a sixth or seventh inning and we were leading 4-1 or we were leading 5-2. He always kept the team off guard. You've seen a lot of pitchers on the bump for our franchise through the years, but this is a guy that was as consistent as you can find, certainly in the last 30 years.
Guardians Hall of Famer, without question. He earned that on the mound for the number of years that he threw. He won 17 games a couple times, 92 and 96. He pitched in 15 postseason games, and that's a lot. And one of the coolest things, if you bring up Charlie Nagy's name, the first thing I think of is how he, Carlos, and Sandy would help us as we, the renaissance of Cleveland baseball, moving into a beautiful new building. But number two was his remarkable relationship with Mel Harder. Mel Harder would call me during games when Charlie was on the mound, and he would call me in the press box, and he would say, "Would you, after the game, have Charlie call me tomorrow morning? He's inching to the first base side of the rubber, and so he's cutting off, the ability for strike zone." Mel Harder was a pitching coach for us for 16 years. After pitching in the big leagues for 20, he wore a Cleveland uniform for 36 straight seasons, and the most ever. And I think Sandy Alomar might be number two right now at 25 or 6 or something of that nature. But those two, and Charlie would call him and they would talk. And I have a picture in my office here at home. You can't see it in the background, but it's of the two of them. Mel Harder in his 1930 uniform, Charlie in his 1994 uniform, 93 uniform, and they're down the left field line of this makeshift baseball field we did on the site of Jacobs Field when we identified where home plate was. Nothing starts in construction without identifying where home plate is. And then we did a marketing sales event, and we had both Charlie and Mel Harder throw a ceremonial first pitch to Sandy Alomar. And it's this party with a big tent, all food, beverage, all these heavy hitters in town, people who we wanted to buy sweets, and just this huge party. Down the left field line, which would become the left field, are those two. And Mel Harder's touching Charlie's hands, putting his fingers on the ball on how to hold the curveball a little bit better. It's one of those things that um, makes me the most proud and most happy when I think back about the connecting of those generations, those two people who pitching, you don't understand it at their level, but their connection and friendship meant the world to me.
That's a fabulous story, by the way. Well, speaking of the old ballpark, the month of May, we're going to be busy at home. And boy, we've got you mentioned heavy hitters. We've got literally heavy hitters coming into the ballpark in May. Phils, Brewers, Dodgers, Angels all coming in, and they have superstars on their lineup going up against us.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. And before we get in that, one last thing on Charlie, he got a hit in the All-Star game. Um, and it was the first hit by a pitcher in the All-Star game in 29 years. He got a dribbler off Doug Jones, his old teammate.
Oh,
I don't know if you remember that, but he pitched, I think it was the seventh or eighth inning. He comes in the dugout. Tom Kelly's the manager, and he said, "Hey, Chuck, I apologize, but I ran out of players. You're going to have to bat." Chuck's like, "What?" So he didn't have a helmet. He didn't have a bat. So he's going to figure out whose helmet fits, what bat do I use? And he ended up getting a dribbler base hit. But as you said, May, um, what a month for us this month with Bryce Harper and the Philadelphia Phillies, one of the juggernauts in the National League, coming to town for a big weekend series and a ESPN Sunday night ball game on May 11. That's going to be really a fun atmosphere for all of us. Kristen Yelich and the Milwaukee Brewers follow them. And then the road trip in between the next homestand, we go to Detroit for four, Ray.
oh,
Yeah, there's on that, we have a 10-day, 10-game road trip. And so we go to Cincinnati to see Tito. We go to Minnesota, and then we go to four in Detroit. And we're one back of them in the loss column. They're playing very well. That's going to be a real fun early season 4-game series. And then when we get home, we get to face Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, and the LA Dodgers. Them with their $400+ million payroll, if you include the salary tax. Um, let's see if I have it. Hold on a second. See if you can see this.
oh, I see it. 476. Oh,
This
yeah.
is the New York Times. The disparity in salaries. The Marlins are at 69.1 and the Dodgers at 476. It's just crazy. This story, I bring this on speaking appearances now and I hold it up and I said, so this is an issue, and how we've become very consistent with our sustained winning culture is truly a testament to the culture Paul has created and what Chris Antonetti and the group has done. So early, Bryce Harper comes in, Kristen Yelich, you've got Shohei and Mookie Betts, and then at the end of that homestand, at the end of the month, Mike Trout and the LA Angels come. So there's some firepower. And in between all that is a 4-game set at Detroit. So the month of May is going to be really fun.
Boy, it sure is. Some big games too, and it's only the month of May. The only other thing I wanted to bring up this morning, because I was listening to Hammy on the broadcast, and he was talking about how clutch Jose Ramirez has been for us throughout the years, Bobby. And I was starting to think, well, Jose Ramirez is really clutch. And then I think of guys in the past that I think of being clutch for us. I go way back. I remember Pat Tabler was terrific with the bases loaded. That's a name that came to mind right away. But you've seen all these guys game in, game out. Obviously, Jose Ramirez, current time. But what name comes to your mind when I think about clutch hitters for our Cleveland baseball club through the years?
Well, if we talk current one more time, you say Jose, but then David Fry. You know what David did. You know, he saved our season in Game 4 in Detroit in the ALDS with that big homer, and then we were able to get, you know, Lane Thomas's grand slam in Game 5, and then David Fry again in Game 3 with big Christmas. So the first thing in your head are the most current, but then you'll think back. You and I are on the same page. Pat Tabler, and the way he was so clutch. His always talked about it. You know, his ability to focus because he knew he was in charge because the pitcher had to throw strikes. And so he was in charge at the plate. And so he didn't need to, you know, swing at anything that was thrown up there. Look for a ball within the strike zone and do something with it. Don't go chasing. And the pressure was on the pitcher. Jim Thome was always thought of as a clutch hitter. Manny Ramirez, that 99 season, Roberto Alomar. If we needed a double, he hit a double. If he needed a homer, he hit a homer. He was unbelievable. And then I just remember talking with old timers who, when we'd get into that scenario, that they would say that the old timers would tell them that Elmer Flick from Bedford, Napoleon Lajoie might have been the most clutch performers that we had. So, you know, clutch hitting is subjective in one sense. But there are statistics, obviously, hitting with runners in scoring position, and Manny and Jim Thome, Roberto Alomar, those guys. But that 90s offense could do anything they wanted.
And for my money's worth, to be quite honest, in today's world of baseball, game on the line, there's not many more I would take over Jose Ramirez, to be quite
Correct.
honest. He is so clutch for us. Well, Bobby, thanks again for making time for us on Hey Bobby with Senior VP of the Guardians, Bob DiBiasio. We do it each week here on WAKR. We'll do it again next week. And as Bob mentioned, huge month of May this coming weekend. The Phillies coming on in, and then the Brewers next week. Bobby, we'll do it again next week. Thanks for the time, my friend.
Thank you, Ray. Always fun. Yeah, a heck of a May coming up. Go Guardians.